Migration experiences from Puerto Rico, both in the States and on the island. First off, Puerto Rico is a U.S. Commonwealth, which means that someone who has traveled from Puerto Rico is not an immigrant to our country. The term would actually be an internal migration. Puerto Ricans have not moved to the US because they've always lived in the US. They have moved to the mainland or the continental US. So this is important to know this terminology when working with clients from Puerto Rico. It's also important to understand that this Commonwealth status has created kind of this circular migration where there's not a need for passports or visas. And so they could travel to and from the island to the States very easily. And there can be a lot of back and forth, and it creates this kind of consciousness of like ne de aquí, ne de allá, which means neither from here nor there among these migrants from Puerto Rico. And so this is another important thing to acknowledge. It can at times lead to a biculturalism where they feel as though they belong to both cultures, but typically it really is more associated with a marginalization where they do not feel they belong to either culture. Another term that's important is La Isla. This is a term, it means the island. It's actually used on the island of Puerto Rico to distinguish between the metropolitan area and the boundaries with outside of that. And so the people who live in La Isla are often viewed by the people in the metropolitan area as hillbillies or country bumpkins. And there can be a stark inequality between these two places. And this is important to know when working with clients, obviously. And so the last part would be the repeal of the Law 936. Law 936 was part of Operation Bootstrap, which was this law provided tax relief to businesses in Puerto Rico. So when the law was repealed, it created massive plant closures, job losses followed, and it really sent Puerto Rico into a Great Depression that they have not recovered from. Puerto Rico's unemployment rate and rates of residents living below federal poverty are at least double that of the continental US, and both their annual income and their workplace participation are at a third of the continental US. And these are all important to know for the experiences of clients from Puerto Rico.